Hi, I'm Linda Billings, and the topic of my talk is the challenges, and I would go so far as to say threats, being posed in recent years to the policy and practices of planetary protection, especially with the push ahead for human exploration. I am not an ethicist by training, but this talk is based on a chapter that's to be published in an edited volume on astrobiology ethics. I'm a social scientist by background. So I'm going to start with the fundamental space law, which is the 1967 United Nations Outer Space Treaty, which in the United States has the status of the law of the land according to the Constitution. And these are the most relevant treaty principles to my talk today, that space exploration shall be carried out for the benefit and the interests of all countries and shall be the province of all mankind. This is not the case right now. Outer space shall be free for exploration use by all states. It is, but not very many states have the capability to do so. A growing number do, but most signatories to the treaty do not have spacefaring capability, and very few have human spaceflight capability. Outer space is not subject to national appropriation. And we know that NASA has contracted with a couple of companies to extract lunar resources for presumably sale. I find that a little dicey. The last 2 points are the most important points that I want to make with regard to the treaty. That Article 6 states that states shall be responsible for national space activities, whether carried out by governmental or non-governmental entities. Right now, the US approach to regulation and oversight of commercial space activities has been pretty light, shall I say. With regard to planetary protection, the most relevant principle is stated in Article 9, to avoid harmful contamination of extraterrestrial bodies and to avoid contamination of the terrestrial environment by extraterrestrial life should we ever come across it. Planetary protection policies were originally established by the Committee on Space Research, and NASA, following those policies for years, have been in parallel and prepared, updated together through the COSPAR panel on planetary protection. And this has worked very well for a long, long time. And as you can see, there was a recent report from the COSPAR panel on planetary protection that states parties have for 50 years implemented Article 9 by using COSPAR and following its planetary protection guidance framework. There's an ideological conflict here. Astrobiologists, who are natural scientists, are concerned with keeping potentially habitable solar system environments pristine for scientific exploration, and that is primarily to search potentially habitable environments for the possibility of past or present extraterrestrial life. This is very much, in my mind, a humanistic value, that we value life. And human exploration advocates, particularly in industry, but also very much in NASA, want to ensure that planetary protection requirements do not hinder the human exploration and development of space. And this is very much a neoliberal belief system. Minimal regulation, let the private sector do what it wants, when it wants, how it wants. As to planetary protection for human missions to Mars, it's a work in progress. NASA has a policy instruction in place, not actually a policy. And the bottom line is, as stated here, the intent of this policy is the same, whether a mission to Mars is conducted robotically or with human explorers. Accordingly, planetary protection goals should not be relaxed to accommodate a human mission to Mars, which I am totally in agreement with. In 2018, the NASA Advisory Council, at the request of the administrator, formed a new policy and regulatory committee, and it was tasked to come up with ways to catalyze the civil space economy, and the vague statement, advance other policy objectives. The first chair of this committee was Mike Gold, a corporate attorney and longtime critic of planetary protection requirements. He's a very, very smart guy and very, very much neoliberal. And shortly after he got this committee set up, he joined NASA as a special advisor to the administrator, and then was named Associate Administrator for International Intergovernmental Affairs. And he is very much promoting the Artemis Accords and space mining initiatives. And the report from this committee to the NASA Advisory Council prompted this response that planetary protections are becoming obsolete and do not properly account for the possibilities of human spaceflight and private sector missions. So there's really quite a bit of pushback. And NASA's response to the NASA Advisory Council's recommendations was to establish a planetary protection independent review board. Quite a comprehensive report put together in about 10 months, which was pretty interesting. NASA's response to the PPIRB report was to ask the National Academy of Sciences, Space Studies Board, and Aeronautics and Space Engineering Board to form a new standing committee on planetary protection. And that committee has had several meetings. I think in a future slide, I will say something about how many. So the big picture for me is that while some US politicians continue to claim that the United States is the world's only superpower and the leader of the world, and also the world leader in space, it is not, in my opinion. From its inception in 1958, the space program has been an instrument of foreign policy, and it still is. We spend more money on space exploration than any other nation, but we are by no means the only nation that's leading. And I find it very disturbing that the US NASA is forbidden by law from collaborating with China in space exploration and activity. And we have more and more nations who are developing their own spaceflight capabilities, space launch capabilities. I would like to see more collaboration and cooperation instead of less, but of course, over the past 4 years, the environment has not been good for that. And again, the US government, not just over the past 4 years, but pretty consistently has declared that the US is uniquely suited to lead the world in space exploration, while others may follow as lesser partners. This does not go over well. And with NASA's promotion of the Artemis Accords for collaboration on establishing human base on the moon, Russia and China have very politely said, thank you, but no thank you, because we can do it ourselves, which I think is sad. And as some of you may have heard or read my papers before, the US national rhetoric of space exploration advances the conception of outer space as a frontier, a wide open space, open to claims for whoever gets there first, like the gold rush. And it's not going to be a gold rush because it's a lot more expensive to try to extract resources in outer space than it was to try to sift gold nuggets out of the rivers in California. So what's next? As I mentioned, the Committee on Planetary Protection at the National Academies held 5 meetings through September and October. Their aim is to produce a consensus study. I don't know what the schedule for production of that study is. I know that those studies take a long time. I believe that NASA's Planetary Protection Officer is walking a tightrope between the astrobiology community and the human spaceflight community. I worked with NASA's Planetary Protection Officer, 3 officers ago, from 2001 to about 2009. And there have been 2 successors to John Rummel since then. And the pressure really picked up in the Obama administration to loosen up planetary protection requirements and enable the human exploration of Mars, and also private sector human exploration of space, and also mining. Probably a bit of good news is that NASA's chief scientist, Jim Green, is NASA's envoy to the COSPAR planetary protection policy. As to what NASA is going to look like and what NASA is going to do and where planetary protection is going to stand in a Biden administration. We don't know who the NASA administrator will be. We don't know if it will be a scientist or another astronaut. We can guess that the Earth Sciences program at NASA will remain strong and healthy. It actually hasn't, for all of the rhetoric coming out of the Trump White House about, you know, the hoax of climate change. The Earth Science program at NASA has remained relatively unscathed. So it's a question mark, actually 3 question marks here, as to what we're going to see over the next few years with planetary protection. I'll hope for the best, but I do not think that the neoliberal drum beaters are going to back off on their claims that planetary protection policy and procedures as they stand now are unnecessarily restrictive. And last I knew, the rough estimate of the cost of planetary protection for a given mission is about 10% of the budget, which doesn't seem outrageous, but when you're talking about human missions, yeah, it could be outrageous, but I think we need to do it. So that's my talk. I have a preprint if anyone's interested, so I put my email up here. I'll give you a few seconds to record it. I'll be happy to share that paper with you if you like, and I'm really looking forward to discussing this issue with you. And I think this talk probably overlaps with some others. So I'm looking forward to talking to you, and I'll leave you with this slide to look at. Thanks very much.